All right. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to everybody who's logged in from different parts of the world. We welcome you to Pcloudy's webinar today, and we're excited to have you with us. So welcome, everyone, and welcome to Pcloudy's webinar on next-gen banking app testing strategies, the QA strategies to deliver flawless digital experiences specific to banking apps. Right? My name is Dinakar, and I'll be the host for today. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules. You may have noticed that your line is currently muted. If you have any questions, you can submit your questions using the Q&A option available. We will answer your questions as part of the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Also note that this webinar is being recorded, and we will send out the link of the recording to share with your colleagues later. With that said, let me introduce the speaker for today, Jessica. Jessica is a pre-sales specialist at Pcloudy. She has around 4+ years of experience in the IT industry. Prior to her role at Pcloudy, she has worked with LTI Mindtree as a pre-sales consultant in automation solution design for various industries. She has a keen interest and expertise in data analytics and various automation tools. So without further ado, let me hand it to our speaker for the day, Jessica Selvin. Over to you.
Hey, Dinakar, thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. So really excited to be sharing with you certain insights on the QA strategies to deliver flawless digital app experiences, right? So before we get into the thick of the webinar, let me just do a poll, right? So I think you should be able to see a question flash on your screen right now. Right? Yeah, so the question is, how do you manage your daily banking activities? So the first option is through your mobile app, secondly, net banking, and thirdly, visiting your branch. So I'll just give you a few seconds to answer this as we see the responses coming in. So yeah, I can see that the mobile app is the overwhelming option. Everyone seems to have been selecting mobile apps, right? So I think there is a clear majority in this case, right? And this really helps in terms of setting the context to what would be the discussion here today at the webinar. So moving on, let's see the evolution of banking. Right, and how today's banks have evolved, right? Talking about the past, we knew how it was in terms of visiting a physical branch, and for every single transaction, you would have to go and visit your local bank branch, right? And then from that, the next shift came with the ATM cards, right, and allowing you to withdraw money through ATMs, debit cards, credit cards, and so on. And the main revolution happened with digital banking, right? As internet penetration increased, so did digital banking, and online and mobile banking brought the bank to our fingertips, right? And customers could check balances, transfer money, pay bills without stepping into a branch. So this marked a really significant change, both in terms of how banking transactions are done, but also in terms of customer behavior and customer expectations. So this paved the way for the digital first approach. Along the same lines, the next innovation was the digital wallets, things like your Apple Pay, Google Pay, and so on, enabling customers to make transactions even more seamlessly. And the phase that we see ourselves now and looking ahead into the future, where banking is becoming more integrated and more seamless into our daily lives with innovations like NFCs, biometrics and liveliness, authentication, face and voice recognition are also now playing a significant role, be it in terms of your transaction processing and also in terms of authentication. So underpinning all these the transformations that has been happening in the banking world is the mobile, specifically the mobile app, where your mobile app is your bank, right? So be it in terms of today's fast-paced, digitally driven world, right? the mobile has played a key role or a critical role, right, in terms of transforming banking from a location dependent service into a vast ecosystem of financial services, right, that are accessible at any time, anywhere. So, and this is something that is practical, even that we are able to relate to in our day to day lives, right, with what we have answered and seen in terms of the responses in the poll, right? So, our day to day banking activities are done. Via the mobile app. So, be it account management, handling all your transactions and fund transfers, your bill payments, and also in terms of wealth management, right? With the rise of mobile banking, what used to require a lot of financial advisors and institutions can now be managed from a single mobile interface, right? For investment management, loan management, credit card applications, and so on. And also, from a security point of view, the mobile app plays a key role in terms of critical functionalities like card activation, also enabling things like biometric authentication, two-factor authentication, which is all enabled by your mobile app, right? And also, lastly, and very importantly, is the support and services. So there is no restriction in terms of the banking hours, right? Unlike traditional banking hours, the mobile banking support is available 24/7 for live chat, notifications, and alerts, checking your bank balance, and other functionalities, right? So underpinning the transformation we've seen in banking is the mobile and the mobile app that enables us to do all these transactions seamlessly, right? And another critical point that I want to highlight is how the mobile app has also become the first point of interface. So, for any critical banking service that is being provided, the mobile app has now become the first point or the primary interaction channel, right? So, even if you want to reach out to the customer care, you first go to your mobile app, or maybe you raise a ticket through the self-service portal, or if you want any advice for advisory reasons, or you want to apply a credit card for a credit card or a loan application, or investments, everything is initiated first and foremost through the mobile app. So this becomes critical because if this particular point breaks, then every other banking service and critical functionality in your banking services are also impacted, right? So that's where the criticality of the mobile apps comes into play, particularly we see in the banking sector, right? And also, not just in terms of the criticality of the of a banking app, but also the quality of your banking app is extremely critical, right? Be it in terms of the brand image, we see that nearly 20% of smartphone users will lose trust in a brand if they encounter an application bug, right? And again, we can relate to it as users of these applications ourselves, right? And also, over a third of smartphone users said that they would delete an app if they encountered a software bug. So, this is again critical in terms of the abandonment of your app might really drastically increase if your performance of your application or the functionalities of your application are not up to the mark. And also, another stat here is that 50% said that the most common reason they would delete an app is if that it did not function as they expected. So they want those critical functions to be seamless and smooth without any bugs. So that is the expectation of the customer. So, in light of these heightened customer expectations, right, we also have in the banking sector the complex digital banking infrastructure, right? So, we have the channels and access layer, which forms the UI, right? So, from the user's point of view, this is their interface, the mobile devices, the browsers, the smart devices, and wearables like the smartwatches, and so on. So, this forms the channels and the access layer, which forms the user experience layer from the digital banking infrastructure point of view. Next, we have the middleware layer, which has the critical functionalities like security, like things like your two-factor authentication, biometric authentication, firewall, also integrations, things like you know transaction processing, and so on, comes into play here. Yeah. And also orchestration. So what are the different processing and transaction rules for different, critical banking transactions? And finally, the backend layer, which involves those APIs and, those digital banking platforms, the core banking system, and so on. And finally, with this, complex banking infrastructure, we have those heightened customer expectations, right? The expectation is that your app should be as easy to use as Instagram, and the interaction should be as fast as Google, right? And the transaction should be as seamless as Amazon, and also secure as Apple. So these are the kind of expectations that every customer has when they're downloading your banking app, right? And so it must deliver on that, be lag free, ensuring 24/7 availability, seamless visual experiences, and functional experiences. So, and again, reiterating that point that how important it is, because the mobile app is your bank, right? So, and with this complex infrastructure in mind, along with the customer expectations that we see, right, is your current testing stack capable of addressing these evolving demands? So now we're moving into what are the testing challenges we see in the context set in terms of the trends we're seeing in terms of banking, right? What are the trends we're seeing here, right? So firstly, in terms of what are the demands the QA teams must meet is firstly the strict regulatory compliance, right? So be it in terms of GDPR, ISO 27001, right? Being compliant, ensuring your app is compliant, and also your testing methodologies are compliant with these regulatory requirements is critical, particularly in the banking sector. And also at the same time, deliver superior digital experiences, right? So, for example, if a major bank redesigns its mobile app, right, and or they do a major update, but as soon as the new release, right, the users started complaining about the slow load times, or there's some UI glitches, right? So what will happen is it will lead to immediate app abandonments, and the usage would drop drastically. So this will have direct business consequences, right? Drastic business consequences. At the same time, being able to test across multi-channel ecosystems. So banking particularly is a very omni-channel in terms of how the users use it, right? Somebody might, the user might start a loan application on their smartphone. They might go ahead and continue it later in their laptop, right? So and if they see that there's a data mismatch, or if the data doesn't sync properly, they might abandon the process entirely, right? So again, leading to, it's a direct business impact. Uh, Finally, able to handle complex use cases. Particularly, banking apps have complex features that come into play during testing, things like biometric. Most banking apps are biometric enabled, right? Also, OCR, being able to extract text from images in terms of scanning a check or scanning an ID to verify the user, right? Liveness testing, and so on. And with all this, also being able to optimize your app's experience with actionable insights. So being able to detect and resolve those issues with actionable insights, right? Now, in terms of the infrastructure that we talked about, right, the complex banking infrastructure, what are the corresponding QA challenges we see? So in the presentation layer, we see that functionally managing the testing infrastructure, right, ensuring that your device coverage is high, but at the same time, managing that infrastructure could be a pain point for a lot of QA teams. At the same time, being able to validate these complex user journeys, and if you're running your regressions, maintaining those scripts, right, for frequent updates, your scripts might break, right? There could be some XPath locator changes, making your scripts flaky, and so on, right? And also on the performance side, being able to identify if there's any UI UX performance bottlenecks, is there any backend a peak in the CPU utilization that might be impacting your app's performance, and so on. Also in the middleware layer and the backend layers, right, the API testing across environments, seeing if there's any failed APIs or slow loads for any APIs that might be impacting, the user experience, right? So these are the kind of testing and QA challenges that we see which directly corresponds to these layers of, complex digital banking infrastructure that we see, right? And in context of this, again, we have a quick poll. I think the question would be flashing again in front of you in a while. Yeah. So in terms of as a QA or being part of a QA team, how often do you see a release or app updates, right? So that's the question. The first option is every week or bi-weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So I'll just give a few seconds for the replies and responses to come in. So yeah, we're seeing mainly it's a split between bi-weekly and monthly, right? So there are pretty much very frequent releases going on in most QA teams, right? Which you need to keep up with in light of these challenges that we discussed as well, right? So yeah, moving on to that, moving on from that, the modern banking complexities that you see, right, require modern testing techniques that are holistic and also agile, right? So in that context, we have you need to adopt a winning formula in terms of ensuring that you do a shift left in terms of your testing strategy. So, firstly, mobile modern banking apps cannot afford to discover bugs later in the development cycles, right? So, shift left testing brings that testing closer to home, in the sense of the closer to the initial phases of development. So, allowing teams to identify and process those potential flaws early on. So this is more like a proactive approach in terms of it significantly first reducing time and effort, and also the cost in terms of fixing bugs that are found in the later stages. So instead of waiting for your app to or your app's build to reach to the deployment production stage, right, the testing is introduced in the requirement and the design phases itself. And what really plays a key role in this is one is comprehensive test coverage, right? Ensuring that you have a diverse and flexible, scalable testing infrastructure, right? That enables efficient testing across environments, reducing bottlenecks. And secondly, what really helps is to implement AI-based solutions, incorporate that into your testing techniques. So what we see firstly in terms of the AI agents, right, being able to autonomously create your test scripts, and also at the same time being able to orchestrate that, execute that in an optimized way, and have observability agents that will be able to detect those performance bottlenecks. Next, in the predictive analytics front, being able to see what is the response times of your application, what are the network and API data, right? And at the same time, being able to have test coverage, both in terms of infrastructure, like I mentioned, and also in terms of the diversity of the use cases. So be it testing for biometrics, OCR, liveness testing, payment testing, being able to cover all these complex use cases in a comprehensive device infra coverage, right? And also enabling all of this to be in a shareable report format so that you can have a strong and transparent collaboration between the dev and QA. That also is a very critical part of this. So with that, introducing Pcloudy, which is really designed to help you win. With these challenges that we've presented, the thought process is to develop solution layers according to these challenges observed, right? And that's where our AI-powered digital experience testing platform comes in, right? So talking about the core layers of our solution, right? The first and foremost comes our diverse device coverage, right? So we have 5,000 plus device browser coverage combinations in terms of these being real devices. So we do not support mainly simulators or emulators. These are all real devices that are hosted in our global infrastructure. So we have multiple data centers. We have it in the US, few in India, Singapore, the Middle East, and also moving further to Europe and so on. So we have a global device coverage, and also in terms of the variety of devices available, we have all the latest OS versions. As soon as they're in the market, we incorporate them into our and add them into our device coverage, right? And also supporting other devices like smart TV, smartwatches, custom devices, Zebra devices, and so on. And all of this is available in a secure deployment option, right? So be it on-premise, lab in a box, which is a quick to implement on-premise setup, a private cloud, which would be exclusive server space for you, where you can customize the devices you want that will be available for you 24/7, and a publicly available cloud with a very diverse range of devices. Next, talking about our solution layers, which we will deep dive in the further slides as well. But firstly, functional experience testing. So this is where your manual and your automation, functional validation would come into play, right? Backed by our device coverage, right? So you'll be able to test for across different browser versions and OS versions for mobile and web applications. right? And you'll be able to trigger your automation scripts from your existing frameworks if you have any. So we pretty much integrate with all the open source frameworks like APM, Selenium, Espresso, Playwright, and so on. And also performance experience testing. This is another exciting layer in our solution, right, where we provide 60 plus performance metrics, right, critical performance insights as well, which will identify where are those bottlenecks, why could there be a lag in a certain point in your testing, right? Is there any page transition that's slow? Is there any frames that are janky? Is there a sudden spike in the CPU that could be impacting my app's performance, and so on? So these are the kind of detailed visualizations you will get with 60 plus metrics. And finally, on the digital experience monitoring, which is synthetic monitoring that is more for apps that have moved into production but still monitor continuously, right? So what we will do is we will mimic user behavior, right, and create scripts using AI that will run continuously 24/7 and give you that real-time status and dashboards that will help you proactively detect any anomalies in your production application as well. And finally, the AI agents that drive this testing cycle, right? So firstly, we have Copilot, which is a test creation agent, right? So this will autonomously create those scripts. You don't need any coding, right? So in a matter of minutes, it will be able to create an entire test suite, right, which you can go ahead and just trigger and execute. So we have self-healing incorporated by default, right, which will fix your scripts, right, and as well as an orchestration agent that will distribute your scripts across the devices in an optimized way. And finally, the analysis part, which is the observability agent that will be able to detect those anomalies and send alerts accordingly, right? So the AI agents are driving our solution layers, and the solution layers are based on the challenges that I've just highlighted in terms of the digital banking area, right? So this is these are our solution layers. Now moving further and deep diving into the functional experience part, right? So these are a few snippets from our tool. Of course, if you are interested to know more, you can always reach out and we can give you a more detailed customized demo. But here's a snippet of our functional experience where you will be able to do validate critical user journeys. So as soon as you click on connect to any of these devices, you will have complete access of the device with you, and you'll be able to test for your critical user journeys like fund transfers, loan applications, user login and authentication, and so on. We also have QLens, which is a visual intelligence feature, right? Where you will be able to see if there's any changes in the UI in the new builds, right? Also accessibility validation, network simulation. So you'll be also able to simulate your the device and configure. We have throttled the Wi-Fi such that you can configure to different network speeds. So you can see how your app is behaving in different, network speeds. And also you can do geolocation testing. So for example, if your app is GPS enabled and you want to test as if your device is in different locations, you'll be able to simulate that as well, right, and test for different locations. And of course, we have browser and device coverage, mobile device coverage, so you'll be able to do cross-platform testing, right? And to scale your functional testing, right, with the AI-powered automation agent that I was talking about with Copilot, you will be able to automatically generate those scripts, right? So drastically saving your time as well as your automation resources. Trigger those test suites, right, in our parallel execution engine. So you will be able to run parallelly, right, hundreds of parallel threads with our self-healing engine, which is incorporated to ensure that your scripts do not flake and do not break, right? And at the same time, distributing it intelligently with our smart allocation or the test orchestration engine, and with our 5,000 plus device browser infra, right? And at the same time, you will at the end have those advanced automation reports, right? For every test case, you will be able to see the video, the logs, APM Selenium logs, right, as well as the CPU and memory metrics, right? So this is how you can scale your functional experience testing with us. So and also you'll be able to, of course, integrate your existing scripts as well and trigger it from your framework and into our platform. Next, talking about our second solution layer, which I was talking about, which is performance experience testing, right? Again, what forms the basis of it is our diverse real device infrastructure, which really helps you to see if the difference in your app's performance from device to device. So you'll be able to do that comparison, the direct comparison, right? And second layer that forms the critical layer is the performance data collection engine, which is going to be able to track all these 60 plus metrics. So from a user's point of view, it will pretty much be like as if you're doing a functional validation. You're just going and mimicking a user's journey. But in the backend, there will be 60 plus data metrics tracked. It will collect all of that and process it. And finally, the visualization engine, which will collect all this data, plot it into graphs, plot it into charts, right? So that it's easily understandable. And also you'll be able to see the corresponding session video for that point in time for all those metrics, right, with real-time graphs and analysis. And finally, our ML-based anomaly detection, right? So this will be able to classify certain issues if there was a slow web page load, or if there's a slow, slow API endpoints or failed API endpoints, janky frames, and so on, right? So you'll be able to see all that analysis and insights as well. So these are a few screen grabs from the performance experience testing. You'll be able to see on the left-hand side, you can see all those auto-generated AI insights with all those different metrics. Similarly, the time series graph with the corresponding, video, the screen grab of the same, along with the API calls, right? So I'm just giving you a very brief rundown. Of course, if you want a more detailed view, you will be able to, you can just reach out to us and we can give you a deep dive demo into all these different metrics and how it will help you, get those metrics that are impacting your app's performance. Again, page transition, seeing all the frames and what are the errors, right? Is it a janky frame, right? And is there a delay in your page transition and so on? So these are the kind of visualizations you'll be able to see. And also we've just to show you the level of detail in which we've gone into, right? Here are some of the metrics that are available for Android and iOS, right? So of course, again, if you want more details, please reach out to me. And also in terms of scaling your app performance testing, this is more from the functional side where you're just triggering a simple flow. At the same time, you can do this in the context of load testing as well, where you can trigger your existing JMeter scripts, right, and trigger the load. And then after that, you can run the Pcloudy performance engine and track the metrics and get the reports for that as well, right? And moving further to the observability part of it, which is the synthetic monitoring. So this is more for your apps that are in production, right? So your Qpilot AI will create those fully autonomous scripts for critical user journeys, and you will be able to run it 24/7, right? So you'll be able to constantly get real-time insights 24/7, right? So the UI performance metrics, the network and backend API details, the logs, and the app performance on device metrics, and so on. So you'll be able to see those critical user journeys. You'll be able to mimic that, create that with autonomously with our Qpilot and run it 24/7 in your production application to get those insights, to be more proactive, even in terms of after the release, to get those anomalies and proactively identify if there are any bottlenecks, right? And also in terms of the critical testing use cases that I was talking about, right? So at Pcloudy, we support QR code scanning. So for example, if your device, we are a device cloud platform, right? So if to test for scenarios that involve using the camera, right? We have the option of injecting a particular image. So you'll be able to inject the QR code. Also in terms of file transfer, right? You'll be able to transfer PDF files, image files, and also we support OCR, which is OCR scanning, which in case if for a particular client, we actually had this use case where the user, the app would actually first scan the ID, extract the text from the ID, and validate whether the user was a valid user, and then allow them to enter into the application. So we supported testing for OCR scenarios as well. And then, of course, things like liveliness testing and biometric testing. So we support for video injection and also testing for biometrics. So if your app is biometric enabled, you will also still be able to test both in terms of functional manually as well as automation. We also support geolocation testing, network simulation, localization testing, and accessibility testing as well. And also we have SIM-enabled devices, right? So this is again something that is pretty much very common in the banking app scenarios where notification and OTP testing is very much part of the critical workflows. So payment testing and SMS verifications can also be tested in our devices. Next, talking about the secure deployment options that we have, right? So we have a plug and play option, right, which is also what we call lab in a box, which is again unique to Pcloudy, where we can do a quick on-premise setup for you, right? So typically on-premise would be required typically in banking scenarios with all the regulatory requirements, right? So you can start small with our plug and play lab in a box setup, right? Which is pretty much an instant setup, right? There's near zero latency, right? And it's portable, it's very easily portable, and the data will not leave your network. So from a security standpoint, also you're covered, right? But at the same time, you can scale flexibly with our private cloud. So we have scalable infrastructure. So you will be having a dedicated server space for you, right? So you will have access to your preferred choice of devices 24/7. But and at the same time, the infra maintenance is on us. So Pcloudy will do the maintenance for you. So there'll be no infra maintenance hassle, right? And secure in Pcloudy's data centers. And 24/7, you will have technical support as well. So this is our recommended deployment option, especially in banking scenarios where you'll start small with our lab in a box, and you can then scale as per your requirement flexibly with our private cloud option. And also in terms of our integrations, like I mentioned, we integrate pretty much seamlessly. So all the automation tools, APM, Selenium, Espresso, right? And also all the frameworks that you see here, collaboration tools, Jira, right? And also CI/CD. So you'll be able to trigger your suites pipelines right from your Jira itself, your CI/CD tool, right? Be it Jenkins, Azure DevOps, we pretty much integrate, right? And also in terms of performance and project management tools as well. And also we integrate with app distribution tools like TestFlight and App Center that will enable you to install those applications or your builds on our devices. So I'm pretty much done here, and I hope this session was informative for you. Just to summarize, so we have seen how, what are the criticalities of a banking app or a mobile banking app in the modern, BFSI sector that we see, and also what are the challenges that QA teams face, particularly with complex digital banking infrastructure at the same time with customer expectations being so high, and what are the three solution layers and the unified digital experience AI first platform that Pcloudy offers, right? So with that, I will take it to Q&A now. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take it now. Yeah, so I'm seeing one question coming in. Can we customize the threshold for the performance metrics? Yes. So by default, there may be a set threshold, right? So for example, 3 seconds is a slow page load, right? But if you want to change that or configure that, make it 2 seconds or 4 seconds, you'll be able to do that, and your reports will and visualizations will be reflected accordingly. Yes, so you can customize thresholds for performance metrics. Okay, I see another question coming in. Can you add validation and assertion steps through QPilot? Yes, you will be able to do that as well. So you can pretty much give, like in plain natural language, validate if login button is enabled, validate if login button exists. These kind of validations and assertions, conditions as well can be added in simple, plain, natural language in your QPilot steps. Yes. Are there any more questions? In what formats are the test reports generated? Yeah, so these are HTML reports, right? So that they are easily shareable links, right? So you don't need to, the person you're sharing it with need not be a Pcloudy user. They will be able to just easily access it through the link, right? So this enables easy collaboration between, as I was saying, QA and dev teams. So these are very easily shareable reports, HTML reports that are generated for every session, be it manual or an automation session. Okay, can I migrate my automation scripts and get these reports for different devices? Yes, you'll be able to run. Okay, I think what the user here means is to, can I run my automation scripts from my framework and get the reports for different devices? Yes. So for every session that you trigger, right, be it from your automation framework even, you will be able to get those reports for that particular framework from, be it, say, for example, you've triggered APM scripts on 3 devices, right? Parallelly, you'll be able to get separate reports for each of those sessions. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, are there any more questions? Else I will hand it over to Dinakar. Okay, do I need to have to know programming languages to use QPilot? No, you do not need to know programming. You do not need to have programming skills. So the main reason is because our AI model is very accurate. It generates a ready to run script. So the scripts are error free. And what happens is you will be able to, trigger the script and it's ready to run. You just need to give the script in natural language and generate it. And what happens is every step is getting executed in the backend, right? So this ensures that the script accuracy is very high. Yeah, there are more questions. Can we utilize the existing APM scripts? Yes, you will be able to utilize your existing APM scripts. You don't need to. So if you've already have your existing frameworks, we're not saying to migrate everything to QPilot. You can run your existing scripts, your APM scripts from your frameworks. And for scaling up, you can use QPilot to auto-generate those scripts. What about mock tests? Can you, Ashwita, if possible, can you please explain a little further by what the context is regarding mock tests, and I'll be happy to answer. Or else you can definitely reach out to me as well, and I'll be happy to answer. Okay, I see no further questions. Can we use tools like WireMock in your environment? I would have to check on this specific tool. Typically, any open source tool or automation framework we do integrate. Let me just check on the WireMock tool and get back to you, Ashwita. Sure.
All right. Great. Thank you, Jessica. Well, it's been a pleasure listening to you, and thank you for sharing your words of wisdom and doing a deep dive into, what are some QA strategies that we can follow for our banking applications. And your presentation has really covered a lot of practical insights on the way forward to, really get the ball rolling in terms of digital experience testing itself. So thank you so much. And thank you to each one of our participants who were, active participants who were taking part in the polls and asking questions. We loved having you here. And we're sure some of these ideas that we spoke about, some of these insights that we've shared, that Jessica had shared, had sparked a few ideas in you that you can think through and implement. And also, as promised, we will shoot out the banking app testing playbook via email to each one of you. So do look forward to that email from us. And do feel free. You've got the contact details on screen right now. You can reach out to Jessica by writing an email to her, or you can also write to us at info@pcloudy.com. Use the live chat option that we have on our website on www.pcloudy.com. Call the number or just schedule a demonstration. Unfortunately, we were not able to show you a demonstration of how it looks, but I think the screen grabs that Jessica had shared does justice to how it would look like when you run your tests and get a report out, right? And there is so much more to testing your digital banking apps. So if you do have some specific customized requirements, please do reach out. We'll be more than happy to kind of tackle that with you on a call and see how we can help you out with your testing. With that, thank you once again for being an engaging audience and have a great evening.